You don't have to wait until you reach financial independence to start enjoying your life. You can do that much earlier and start living a life that you love and that's true to you. Welcome to Freedom Before FI. Using FIRE and life design techniques, we help you create freedom on your way to FI instead of waiting until you're retired to do the things that light you up. I'm your host Greg, a FIRE movement and life design enthusiast. If you're itching to get freedom now, then let's do this. Hello my friend, and welcome to part 2 of the money stages. So this is a continuation of the previous episode, which was episode 7, where we broke down the 5 stages of the money journey. Now in this episode, I'll be giving you practical tips on how to move up the different stages. The stages are important because you need to know exactly where you are so you can strategize and execute to get to the next level. Each level up gives you a bit more freedom because each stage opens up more options for you. So I'm just going to recap the 5 stages. The first stage was the YOLO Life stage. In general terms, this was living paycheck to paycheck. So I used the analogy of building a house to visualize the stages. So this stage would be excavating your plot of land to build your house on. Okay, so stage 2 was the debt-free life stage, which was basically paying off large consumer debts and building an emergency fund. Using the house building analogy again, this stage would be laying the foundations of your house. Okay, so the third stage was the investing life stage. This is when you overcome the mental barriers to start investing your hard-earned money. And this would be the stage where you start building the walls of your financial house. The fourth stage was the FU life stage, which was building what we call your FU stash, and is along the lines of 1 to 5 years of expenses, give or take. So in the house building analogy, this would be putting the roof on your financial house. So the fifth stage was the FI life stage, which is the ultimate goal of reaching financial independence. This stage would be completing your house and your garden, and you'll be enjoying all the fruits and vegetables of your labor. Sorry, I had to add in vegetables because I'm a vegetarian. All right, so have a think. Of the 5 stages, which one are you on right now? You just knowing where you're at on the journey is a massive step. Okay, so let's get into the tips of how to get from one stage to the next. Alright, so let's start with stage 1. So stage 1 is the YOLO life stage, meaning the money coming in and out every month are near enough at the same level, leaving you with very little at the end of each month. Okay, so if you're on this level, the first tip here is to have a really good grasp of where all your hard-earned money is going every month. So I suggest you track your monthly expenses. You can record your expenses on a budgeting app or just on Excel. That way you can visually see where all your money is going, and you can then pinpoint where you can cut. I record my expenses on a simple money app every day, which splits them into categories. So for example, categories might be groceries, transport, utility bills, eating out, entertainment. I've even got a category for sports because I do like sports and exercising, so I sometimes splurge on that a little bit. So I need to kind of monitor that so it doesn't get out of hand or anything. So anyway, at the end of each month, I can visually see where I'm spending. I can then adjust or just cut things as needed. Like for example, if me and my wife are spending too much money on massages and spas, which we like, we could just remove that. Anyway, as they say, what gets measured gets managed. Okay, so another thing you can do is to start paying down your consumer debts. You can check out the debt snowball method by Dave Ramsey. In this method, Dave Ramsey suggests paying off your smallest interest debts first, then moving on to the next smallest until you've paid all of them. Now, I personally prefer the reverse. I personally prefer where you start paying the high interest rates first, but each to their own. The key thing here is that you're actively trying to pay them off. Okay, so another thing you can do is to start reducing your monthly expenses. So for example, can you start cutting down on things like monthly subscriptions? This is your Netflix, your sports channels, your Disney Pluses, or maybe it's things like gym memberships and eating out. If you can cut down on the big 4 like housing, food, transportation, and holidays, you're definitely going to get a gold star. So one of the major hacks to cutting down spending is by moving to a low cost of living area. So, for example, moving outside of major cities like London, San Francisco, New York, Sydney, it might sound like something big and radical to do, but this would be a really good shortcut to help with your financial goals. You can even take it a step further and move to a low cost of living country, if that's even at all possible and if that's something of interest. This would be a massive help if you can do that. And it's something that I've done myself. As you might know, I've moved from the UK to the Philippines, which has a much lower cost of living. Okay, so another angle you could look into is increasing your income. This can be by working towards promotion or asking for a raise. You could even do out-of-the-box suggestions like maybe starting a side hustle, doing freelance work, or maybe joining the gig economy, so things like Ubers, TaskRabbits, things like that. Or maybe you can even sell some of your stuff. Like I've sold some old furniture and some audio equipment before, which has helped a little bit. Now this also helps with decluttering your house if you're into like minimalism and things like that. I'm really not a fan of clutter and having things lying around the house, and I like to just get rid of things that I don't use. So this is a great one for me. All right, so let's go to stage 2. If you're in stage 2, the debt-free life, well done, because you've built an emergency fund and you've paid off some larger consumer debt at this stage. So one of the most important lessons I learned when I was at this stage was to avoid what they call lifestyle creep. So this is when you start increasing your expenses as your income increases as well. And it's usually on material items. Like I remember I started thinking, ooh, I got a raise. Perhaps I can afford a larger car or rent a larger place. And I can start going to slightly more expensive restaurants. Obviously, this is wrong because I'm not increasing my savings rate. In other words, I wasn't increasing the gap between what I was earning and what I was spending. So the best thing to do when you do get more income is to keep your existing spending level or lower it if you can. That way you can increase that gap between what you're earning and what you're spending. All right, so the big lesson at this stage is to increase your savings rate, meaning the percentage of your monthly income you're able to save. Of course, the higher your savings rate, the quicker you're able to build your nest egg. Also, this has a double-edged sword because not only are you saving more, but you're lowering the amount of money you need to live on, meaning you're learning to live on less, which will set you up well for the future. Okay, so to get to the next stage, which is the investing life stage, the first thing here is to build up your investing knowledge. The more you know, the more confident you'll feel investing. Also, you can just start small just to get your feet wet initially. Before I went heavy into index fund investing, I first invested with smaller amounts just to get over that first bit of fear. Since we all like stock market investing on this podcast, I'm a follower of the J.L. Collins Simple Path to Wealth method. You can delve into his teachings or from books like The Bogglehead Guides to Investing, The Millionaire Teacher, and Quit Like a Millionaire. You could even get the audiobook versions if you prefer listening on the go, or you could even read some of their blogs. Some of the fundamental topics to learn are things like the power of compound interest, stock market investing, especially low-cost index funds, tax advantage accounts, and all the fees involved with investing. All right, so let's go over to stage 3. If you're in stage 3, which is the investing life, this means you've already started investing and you want to build up an FU fund. One of the key things here is to put processes in place to make investing as automated as possible. Once you've got a plan of where your money will go every month, have a monthly rhythm of saving and investing so it becomes second nature. So for example, you can set up automated investment payments. Alright, so have you heard of the term always pay yourself first? I first heard this in the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. So this basically means save and invest in yourself first before paying out money to anyone else, like car payments, utility bills, rent, and things like that. Now, if you pay yourself last every month, you might not have much left over for yourself. So this also delays your timeline to get to your nest egg or your FIRE number. Paying yourself first forces you to make the spending compromises you need to get to FI. Now, this is a really important habit to master at this stage. Okay, so the amount you save and invest will depend on your FIRE plan. So once you've done those calculations, stick to your plan as much as you can every month. Then just let compound interest do its thing. Of course, you can always put in more money every month where you can. For example, if you get a bonus or was able to save more on a particular month. Now, if you invest below what your plan was, don't worry, just know why that was and just learn from it for the future. All right, so let's go over to stage 4. If you're in stage 4, the FU Life stage, again, well done to you, because you've built up a decent stash of FU money. All right, so there are 2 options you could choose. You can continue aggressively saving and investing to reach the next stage earlier, which would be stage 5 of this money journey. Or, since this stage opens up a few options, you can let your foot off the gas a bit and start experimenting with alternative lifestyles. I suppose this is more for those who feel a certain yearning to do something different, or if you feel you're in a situation that you're not happy about. For example, if you're feeling burnt out at work, or if you want to work on a passion project, or if you just want to travel more. You can choose some alternative FI paths like Coast FI, Barista FI, or semi-retirement, which I touched on in episode 3. These alternative FI paths really open up some exciting options. Anyway, the FI community sometimes call this stage the boring middle, because you've automated your saving and investing, and you're just kind of waiting for compound interest to do its thing to reach a FI number. And this could be 5 to 15 years, for example. So again, you can either continue trying to optimize and tweak, pulling on these levers like income and savings rate to get to stage 5 quicker, or you can start using the money you've already saved to start living your ideal life sooner. The decision is totally up to you. But just know there are some cool options that open up at this stage, and this area is what this podcast is all about. All right, so of course the next stage is stage 5, which is the FI life stage and the ultimate goal. So massive well done to you if you're already there. As for me, I haven't reached that ultimate FI goal yet, but I'm currently experimenting with alternative FI paths. In fact, as of this recording, I'm currently on a year sabbatical with my wife. Some might call it an adult gap year or career break. We wanted to spend more time with our families, especially my parents who are getting on a bit. They're currently in their mid to late 70s, and I wanted to spend quality time with them whilst they're here in the Philippines. I also wanted to travel with my wife, and we're actually treating this time as an extended honeymoon break, as we got married earlier in 2024. Pursuing alternative FI paths has allowed us these options, which is why I can recommend them from my own experience. Okay, so before we go over to the main takeaways, I just want to give you a few additional points to remember that will help. The first point is that although we're talking about money, progressing through the stages can also help with our mental well-being. The feeling of getting a bit more breathing room financially really helps us as we progress. That can provide a domino effect. It can reduce our stress and improve other areas of our lives, like our relationships. If you're less stressed about money, that might influence how you show up with your loved ones. Maybe you'll be more calm around your family or have less fights with your partner about money, which is one of the main sources of conflict in relationships. So another point to note is that there might be scenarios where we might have to go back a stage in your money journey, because unforeseen things might happen in life. We may have setbacks, like large unexpected expenses, but that's fine. Since you've already been through the stages, you already have the know-how to progress through them again. The last point I want to stress is that progressing up the stages is absolutely possible. Perhaps you realize that you're at stage 1, the YOLO paycheck to paycheck life, and you're struggling and you can't see the wood through the trees. It may take longer, but you just have to take little baby steps in the right direction. Cut down expenses little by little. Maybe start with the smallest expenses first, just to get the ball rolling. If you've got debt, maybe start paying down the low interest ones first if that's easier. Or maybe do something radical like moving with your parents. And don't worry about what others think of that. Sometimes we just have to make sacrifices in order to achieve our goals. I remember a stage when I was in my 20s, I moved back with my parents for like a good year or so just to save up. And I actually enjoyed it because I got to hang out with my parents. I was a bit older, so we got to have conversations and I got to know them a little bit more. We bonded a bit more. It really helped towards my goals. Just remember, this is not a race. Just do it in your own sweet time. As long as you're incrementally and gradually moving in the right direction, that's all good. We all have our own journeys. All right, so if you have any questions, just shoot me an email. I'd be happy to help. All right, so let's go over to the key takeaways. Here are some of the tips that we talked about that can help you move up the stages. So if you're in stage 1, things like making sure you track your expenses diligently to pinpoint where you can cut. Focus on paying off debt and saving money on the big four expenses like housing, transportation, food, and holidays. One hack to reduce your expenses is moving to a low cost of living area, if that's even possible and that's something that you find of interest. Another thing is trying to increase your income. Maybe ask for a raise, aim for a promotion, move to another company, or do some side gigs if you need to. Now, if you're in stage 2, the things we talked about was avoiding lifestyle creep. If you start to earn more, try not to increase your expenses as well. Do as much as you can to increase your savings rate. At this stage, it would be good to start learning more about investing, especially stock market investing, to put you in good stead for the next stage. Now at stage 3, we talked about putting processes in place so you have a monthly rhythm of saving and investing. Always pay yourself first and automate it if you can. If you're at stage 4, we talked about how this stage opens up more options. So you can continue aggressively save and invest to get to stage 5, or you can redesign your life and start enjoying elements of freedom from the money you've already accumulated at this stage. And stage 5, of course, this is achieving the ultimate goal of financial independence. If you think this episode would help a friend, please don't hesitate to share it with them. The show notes can be found at freedombeforefi.substack.com. If you have a question or want to connect, feel free to send me an email at freedombeforefi@proton.me. That's freedombeforefi@proton.me. If you found this show useful and want to be notified of future episodes, you can follow us on Spotify or Apple via the show's main page or on whatever app you're using right now. And lastly, if you've just learned one good thing that will help you in your journey and you want to help us out here, please do leave a 5-star rating on your podcast player app. If you're using Apple Podcasts, you can even leave a nice review by scrolling to the bottom of the podcast page. That would help us out loads. All right, so that wraps up the 2-part mini-series on the money stages. Hopefully that's helped you and you've got some ideas of how to progress to the next stage. All right, so I really appreciate you tuning in today. And just remember, practice gratitude, live life by design, and do things that make you smile. You got this.